At exactly 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, the clock runs out. That's the deadline Donald Trump posted on Truth Social. Not quietly, not diplomatically, in all caps, with profanity. Directed at the government of a nation his military is already bombing. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one, in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Then came the line that stunned the world. Open the effing strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. That's not campaign rhetoric. That is the sitting president of the United States threatening to destroy the civilian infrastructure of a sovereign country before a self-imposed deadline expires. And the world is watching every second tick by. If you're new here and you want to actually understand what's happening, not the talking points, not the spin, consider subscribing. This channel breaks it down straight. This war is now 6 weeks old. It started on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran under Operation Epic Fury. Military sites, nuclear facilities, command centers, and at the very top of the kill list, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, who was killed in those opening strikes. Iran hit back, hard. It closed the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, surrounded on 3 sides by Iranian territory. And through that 21-mile gap flows 20 million barrels of oil every single day. That is 1/5 of the entire world's oil supply, every day, gone. Iraq shut down its Rumaila oil fields. Kuwait cut production. Qatar declared force majeure on all its LNG contracts. Shipping giants Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd suspended all Middle East routes. Brent crude hit $126 per barrel. Wall Street analysts are now openly discussing $200 a barrel. The International Energy Agency called it, and these are their exact words, the greatest global energy security challenge in history. The Philippines instituted a 4-day work week. Fertilizer prices surged 50% in weeks, and that fertilizer shortage is hitting during spring planting season in America's Midwest. Corn, soy, wheat. The food price shock hasn't fully hit grocery shelves yet. It's coming. Now here is where it gets more complicated. Trump didn't just set Tuesday as a deadline. He set, then extended, then reset this deadline multiple times. First it was 10 days, then 5 days after Iran stalled, then 48 hours. Then he extended that by 24 hours after what he called very good and productive conversations. Every time the deadline approached, Iran didn't blink. They called his threats obscenities and nonsense born of desperation. Their deputy communications chief publicly dismissed the ultimatum as a sign the U.S. has resorted to desperation and anger. Iran's position is now official. The strait stays closed until they receive full financial reparations for war damages. Not a ceasefire, not a pause, reparations. Paid through a new legal regime, essentially a permanent toll system on any ship using the waterway. That is not a negotiating position designed to make a deal. That is a position designed to outlast a deadline. But here's what changed over the weekend, and it matters enormously. On Saturday, Iranian forces shot down a U.S. F-15E Strike Eagle fighter jet deep inside Iranian territory. The pilot was recovered quickly, but the second crew member, a colonel, disappeared. For over 24 hours, a United States Air Force colonel was missing somewhere in the mountains of Iran. Then on Sunday, Trump posted 2 words: "We got him." American Special Operations Forces had pulled off what Trump called one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history. They went deep inside Iranian territory. They extracted the colonel. He was seriously wounded, but alive. That rescue didn't calm Trump down. It enraged him further. Within hours of confirming the rescue, he posted the Tuesday deadline. He told the Wall Street Journal, if they don't do anything by Tuesday night, they won't have any power plants left, and no bridge will be left standing. He was asked directly whether he was concerned about Iranian civilians losing power and access. His answer? No, they want us to do it. They're already living in hell. International law experts immediately raised alarms. Deliberately targeting civilian power infrastructure, power plants, water systems, bridges used by civilians, can constitute a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. That's not a political opinion. That is the legal framework that governs armed conflict, ratified by the United States itself. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, when asked about the potential civilian impact of targeting Iran's power grid, said the administration intended to send Iran back to the Stone Age. The United Nations has said nothing consequential. The Security Council remains paralyzed. And Europe, dependent on American military infrastructure and facing its own energy crisis from the Hormuz closure, has issued statements of deep concern that carry no weight. There is a diplomatic track running simultaneously. It is thin. The foreign ministers of Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey have been working the phones. They are trying to broker what sources describe as a 45-day partial ceasefire. Not a deal, not a peace agreement, just a pause long enough to prevent Tuesday from becoming catastrophic. Both Trump's own envoy and Iranian officials spent Saturday on calls with the 3 mediators. No breakthrough. The 2 sides aren't even talking directly. Everything is through intermediaries. Every message is filtered, delayed, interpreted. Analysts at Nomura describe the situation in one sentence. Markets are on edge, as time is running out and the outcomes are binary. Truce or escalation. Binary. There is no middle ground here. Either a deal materializes before Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, or the United States begins a bombing campaign against Iran's power grid. Think about what that means in practice. Iran runs a national power grid that serves 90 million people. Hospitals, water treatment plants, dialysis centers, neonatal wards. All of it runs on electricity. When power plants go dark, it is not generals who suffer first. It is patients on ventilators. It is newborns in incubators. It is the civilian population that Trump says wants the strikes. And Iran has already made its countermove clear. Iranian military commanders stated publicly, if the U.S. strikes civilian infrastructure inside Iran, Iran will target civilian energy infrastructure across the Gulf. They've already demonstrated that capability. Over the weekend, Iranian drones hit Kuwait's oil headquarters, damaged petrochemical facilities in Bahrain, and put a water desalination station out of service in Kuwait, a country that gets nearly all of its drinking water from desalination. Kuwait and Qatar have no rivers, no aquifers at meaningful scale. They drink desalinated seawater. Iran knows exactly where to hit. The financial markets are screaming. Asian indexes swung wildly on Monday after Axios reported the 45-day ceasefire talks then gave back gains when the odds of a deal before Tuesday were described as slim. Japanese and South Korean markets ticked up on the ceasefire report. Indian markets fell. Every headline is now a market event. Goldman Sachs economists raised their U.S. recession probability by 5 percentage points in a single week. Oxford Economics says if oil reaches $140 a barrel and stays there, which is entirely possible if Tuesday's strikes happen, the Eurozone, the United Kingdom, and Japan go into economic contraction. The United States enters what they call an economic standstill. The world's largest LNG plant, in Qatar, already sustained missile damage that engineers say will take up to 5 years to fully repair. This is not a regional conflict anymore. It became a global economic event the moment the strait closed. Here is the most important question nobody is answering directly. If Trump launches these strikes on Tuesday, what does Iran actually do next? Iran has already warned that attacks on its oil infrastructure will trigger retaliatory strikes across the Gulf region, not just Kuwait and Bahrain, but Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Saudi Arabia and the UAE hold more than $3 trillion in financial assets managed by Western institutions. Their sovereign wealth funds are embedded inside global markets. A direct Iranian strike campaign against Gulf oil infrastructure doesn't just raise oil prices, it destabilizes the entire architecture of Gulf capital that funds American real estate to European bond markets. Iran also still controls the strait. Every day it stays closed is another day the global economy bleeds. And Iran is not negotiating from weakness. They have been striking regional targets for 6 weeks. Their drone supply chains remain functional. Their missile stocks, while degraded, are not exhausted. And they have proxy networks across Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, and Syria that can activate on command. So where does this end? Trump says he'll know soon. His exact words, "I will let you know pretty soon." That is the only honest thing said publicly by any party in the last 72 hours. Nobody knows. Not the mediators, not the markets, not the analysts, not the generals. What we do know is this. A U.S. F-15 was shot down inside Iranian airspace. A colonel came home wounded after a special operations rescue. Iran's Strait of Hormuz blockade is now the largest energy supply disruption in recorded history. Oil hit $126 a barrel. Fertilizer is up 50%. A 45-day ceasefire is being discussed but not agreed upon. And at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday night, the most powerful military on earth has been told, by its own president, in profanity on social media, to bomb Iran's power plants and bridges if the water doesn't start moving again through a 21-mile gap between two coastlines. The clock is running, the world is watching, and nobody, not in Washington, not in Tehran, not in Beijing or Brussels or Riyadh, knows what Wednesday morning looks like.